He moved like a lightweight, punched like a heavyweight, and struck fear into the souls of men long before the first bell. Mike Tyson wasn't just a boxer. He was boxing's most terrifying force. His fights were more than matches. They were executions disguised as sport. No dancing, no running, just calculated violence, head movements so slick it made opponents missed by inches, followed by punches that ended careers in seconds. But here's the strange part. Hated it. Why does no one fight like Mike Tyson anymore? In a sport obsessed with legacy, footwork, and knockout power, you'd think the Peekaboo style would live on, but it hasn't. And the reasons are deeper than you think. From brutal training demands to psychological warfare to the death of the man who created it, this is the story of a style that died with its master, and why the boxing world has never seen anything like Iron Mike since. To understand why no one fights like Mike Tyson anymore, we have to go back to where it all began. Before the knockouts, before the fame, before Tyson became a living nightmare for the heavyweight division, there is a man named Cus D'Amato, a visionary, a radical, a man who didn't just want to teach boxing, he wanted to reinvent it. In the 1950s, D'Amato was working with fighters who were talented but lacked the physical advantages that often define champions. His boxers were shorter, often with less reach, fighting in a world that favored long jabs and towering frames. The solution? Create a system so efficient, so disruptive, that it would flip those disadvantages into strengths. That system would become known as the Peekaboo style. Cus believed most boxing styles were too predictable, static, mechanical. He wanted chaos that could be mastered. He wanted fighters who never stopped moving, who slipped punches by centimeters, who launched attacks from unexpected angles and with devastating speed. He wanted to create psychological warfare inside the ring, breaking opponents mentally before ever touching them physically. His first great experiment? Floyd Patterson. In 1956, at just 21 years old, Patterson became the youngest heavyweight champion in history using the Peekaboo system until Tyson would later break that record. Patterson wasn't a big heavyweight, only about 6 feet tall and around 190 pounds, but with Peekaboo, he was a blur of motion and fury, slipping, weaving, and exploding with combinations no one could prepare for. Then came Jose Torres, who added his own flavor to the style. Smoother movement, sharper counters. He used it to become light heavyweight champion in 1965. But as effective as Patterson and Torres were, they were only prototypes. The style was still incomplete. Cus D'Amato was still searching for the perfect fighter, someone with speed, power, fearlessness, and the discipline to internalize a system that demanded total sacrifice. That fighter would finally appear in 1979, a 13-year-old kid from Brooklyn, angry, abandoned, and already slipping into a life of crime. That kid's name was Mike Tyson, and Cus saw in him the rarest thing in all of boxing, not just talent, but purpose. The style had found its vessel, and the world had no idea what was coming. So what exactly made Tyson the ultimate Peekaboo fighter? Why was he able to succeed where so many others couldn't? That's where we go next. When Cus D'Amato met young Mike Tyson, it wasn't just a coach discovering an athlete. It was the union of a system and a soul that were made for each other. Tyson wasn't just any 13-year-old. He had already been arrested dozens of times. He was angry, violent, emotionally starved, and desperately in need of direction. But Cus didn't see a delinquent, he saw potential. He didn't just want to make Tyson a champion, he wanted to rebuild him from the ground up, mentally and physically, into the ultimate fighting machine. And so began the most intense mentor-student relationship in boxing history. Cus took Tyson into his home in the Catskills. He became his legal guardian, his father figure, his psychologist, and his philosopher. Training wasn't just about punching. It was about discipline, focus, mental strength. Every movement Tyson made in the ring was dissected, rebuilt, perfected. He shadowboxed in front of a mirror for hours, just practicing slipping punches. Left, right, weave, explode, over and over. Cus was molding him into the purest form of the Peekaboo style, the one he had dreamed about but had never fully realized. And Tyson died absorbed everything. He was a natural, fast, explosive, strong beyond his years. But what made him different was how obsessively he listened. He studied old film, fighters like Jack Dempsey, Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano. He'd watch slow magma footage, frame by frame, mimicking their techniques, refining every inch of his movement. Most kids would burn out from that kind of intensity. Tyson thrived in it. He wasn't just becoming a fighter, he was becoming Cus's vision come to life. The transformation was shocking. By the age of 15, Tyson was already knocking out grown men in sparring. He was compact at just 5'10", but fought like a bulldozer on rocket fuel. His head movement was freakish. He'd slip 5 punches in a row without breaking rhythm, then unload a combination that looked like it was shot from a cannon. And it wasn't random. Every punch had a purpose. Every angle was calculated. This wasn't brawling. This was high-speed geometry in motion. But Tyson's power wasn't the scariest part. It was his intent. Cus had instilled in him the belief that fear could be weaponized. Not just his opponent's fear, but his own. Cus taught Tyson how to master it, how to convert that nervous energy into violence. He told him the hero and the coward both feel the same fear. The hero reacts differently. That quote lived in Tyson's mind. It became part of his identity. When he stepped into the ring, he wasn't trying to win rounds. He was trying to destroy your will to fight. This mental programming made Tyson an entirely different beast. He was ferocious, yes, but also incredibly disciplined. People forget how sharp his technique was in those early years. His balance was perfect. His footwork was explosive. He'd slip a jab, counter with a right hook to the body, then come up with an uppercut that lifted 220-pound men off their feet. And he'd do it all inside a second. The Peekaboo style had finally found its final form. Cus D'Amato's dream had become reality. Tyson was the perfect machine, an unstoppable blend of speed, power, and psychological warfare. He wasn't just throwing punches down the middle. He was coming at you from the side, from below, from blind spots you didn't even know you had. His favorite trick? That signature left hook right uppercut combo. He'd step slightly to the left off your jab line and fire both punches from awkward, unexpected angles, both of them carrying knockout power. Third, timing and rhythm disruption. Tyson knew that most fighters needed rhythm to get comfortable. Jab, reset, jab, jab, right hand. He broke that rhythm immediately. His head movement forced them to miss. His pressure made them hesitate, and his speed punished every moment of doubt. That hesitation was fatal. Tyson thrived on it. Once you flinched, he exploded. Fourth, body attacks. People remember Tyson for his headshot knockouts, but what often gets overlooked is his brutal body work. He'd go downstairs with devastating hooks to the liver and ribs, often setting up his famous uppercuts. These weren't throwaway punches. They broke opponents down round by round, making them lower their guard, and then came the kill shot upstairs. But perhaps the most underrated element was Tyson's discipline during this stretch. Under Kevin Rooney, Lehune Tyson stuck to the system. He trained obsessively. He didn't rely on wild haymakers. Every movement had a purpose. Every punch was thrown with balance and intention. This version of Tyson, the 1986 to 1988 version, was the closest thing boxing has ever seen to a human weapon. A 215-pound fighter moving with the speed of a welterweight, the power of a heavyweight, and the precision of a sniper. His performances weren't just wins, they were statements. In 1986, he knocked out Trevor Berbick to become the youngest champ. In 1987, he steamrolled James Bone Crusher Smith. In 1988, he annihilated Michael Spinks in 91 seconds. These weren't just average fighters, these were champions, contenders, tough men with resumes and reputations. Tyson made them look like they didn't belong in the ring. And the most important thing, he did all of this without being a traditional heavyweight. He was giving up height, reach, sometimes even weight, but it didn't matter. The Peekaboo style, in its perfected form, leveled the playing field. Actually, scratch that. It tilted the playing field in Tyson's favor. It turned his so-called weaknesses into superpowers. So then the question becomes, if it was so effective, why don't we see it today? Why don't fighters emulate it? Why don't coaches teach it? Why does no one fight like Mike Tyson anymore? To truly understand why no one fights like Mike Tyson anymore, you have to see the Peekaboo style in action, and not just in slow-mo highlights or Instagram edits, but in its purest, most devastating form during Tyson's prime. Because when you watch Tyson from 1986 to 1988, you're not just watching a great fighter, you're witnessing the execution of a complete combat system, something as structured, intentional, and lethal as a military operation. Let's take the Michael Spinks fight, 91 seconds of absolute destruction. It wasn't just power that ended Spinks' undefeated record, it was calculated, strategic pressure. Tyson immediately stalked Spinks, moving his head non-stop, bobbing and weaving, with that signature low crouch. He wasn't charging blindly, he was measuring, analyzing Spinks' reactions with every subtle feint, and the moment Spinks bit, just once. Tyson stepped in with a right to the body, then a short uppercut, and it was over. That wasn't chaos. That was Peekaboo perfection. Watch the Trevor Berbick fight, Tyson's coming out party. Tyson didn't just knock Berbick out, he knocked him down 3 times with one punch. Berbick simply couldn't process the speed and angles. Tyson slipped jabs like they were in slow motion, closed distance instantly, and delivered short, compact shots from below eye level. That crouching entry combined with head movement made Tyson almost impossible to hit clean. Meanwhile, he was loading up bombs from positions Berbick couldn't defend. But perhaps the best showcase of Peekaboo mastery came in the fight with Tyrell Biggs. Biggs was tall, rangy, and had a solid amateur pedigree. He tried to box Tyson from a distance, flicking out jabs and circling the ring. For the first 2 rounds, it looked like he might have the right strategy, but Tyson didn't rush. He kept bobbing, slipping, cutting off the ring systematically. And by the 3rd round, Biggs started to slow. Tyson read it instantly. He began ripping body shots, forcing Biggs to drop his guard. And then boom, right hook to the head, Biggs stumbles. Tyson stalks, finishes him in the 7th. Another undefeated fighter, broken. That's what Peekaboo boxing was. It wasn't reckless aggression. It was educated pressure. It was built on rhythm disruption, angles, footwork, and timing. Tyson didn't wait to counter. He created his own openings. He manufactured chaos. And while his opponents tried to survive, he thrived in it. It's also crucial to understand how different it looked from modern heavyweight boxing. Today's heavyweights tend to rely on long-range jabs, occasional power shots, and more upright stances. Fighters like Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua operate at range, using reach to their advantage. Even aggressive fighters like Deontay Wilder don't use head movement or tight angles like Tyson did. Wilder swings from wide arcs. Tyson struck from tight, efficient lines, all while keeping his chin tucked and his hands in position to fire counters. In an era where most fighters rely on reach, size, and volume punching, Tyson represented the opposite: compact destruction. Every punch had intent, every movement had meaning, every step was part of the puzzle. And yet, almost no one uses it today. The Peekaboo style has become almost mythological. People watch old Tyson clips like they're watching fight footage from another dimension, and in a way, they are. Because Tyson wasn't just a freak athlete, he was the last and only fighter who fully embodied a complete system that has vanished from the sport. But why? Why did it vanish? Why didn't other fighters adopt it and evolve it? Why don't trainers pass it down? That's where we hit the turning point, the unraveling of the Tyson machine and the death of the Peekaboo system. Not because it stopped working, but because the only man who could teach it was gone. So if the Peekaboo style was so effective, if it turned a 5'10" heavyweight into the most feared fighter on the planet, then why did it die? The truth is, it didn't fade out because it stopped working. It died because it was never designed to survive without Cus D'Amato. The Peekaboo style wasn't a trend or a technique. It was a philosophy, a way of life that demanded total belief, discipline, and trust in the system. And when Cus passed away in 1985, the torch was handed to Kevin Rooney, his most trusted student. Under Rooney, Tyson remained loyal to the style. He stayed in shape, he trained like a machine, and he looked unbeatable. But everything changed after Tyson fired Rooney in 1988. That moment, often overlooked in casual boxing discussions, was the real breaking point. Without Rooney, there was no one left who truly understood the intricacies of the Peekaboo system. Not just the movements, but the mental conditioning, the tactical drilling, the psychological warfare that Cus had hardwired into Tyson since he was a teenager. The style wasn't just about head movement or power punches. It was about timing, restraint, emotional control. And once Tyson lost the last piece of that structure, the foundation began to collapse. From that point on, Tyson started to rely on his power more than his system. He became more flat-footed, less elusive. His combinations became less calculated and more reactive. He was still dangerous, don't get it twisted, but he wasn't invincible anymore. Without someone keeping him on track, keeping him tethered to the discipline of the style, Tyson became a loose weapon, still lethal, but no longer precise. And this is where it gets tragic. No other trainer in the world fully grasped the Peekaboo the way Cus and Rooney did. It wasn't taught in boxing gyms across America. It wasn't passed down the way the Philly shell or classic outboxing techniques were. That's because the style required obsessive teaching. It wasn't something you could copy from watching film. It had to be drilled into you over years under the watchful eye of someone who knew how to adapt it to your body, your psychology, your strengths. And for most fighters and most trainers, that was just too much. Too complex, too foreign. Coaches didn't want to teach it because they didn't understand it. Fighters didn't want to try it because they didn't have the patience for it. The modern boxing world started to favor styles that were more versatile, easier to learn, and better suited to scoring rounds in longer fights. If you believe the Peekaboo deserves a return or just missed the raw intensity Tyson brought to the ring, hit that like button, subscribe for more deep dives into legendary boxing styles, and let us know in the comments, who do you think could bring the Peekaboo back?